What is up? Welcome in, everybody, to the Creed of Crypto podcast. How you doing? I am Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, Crypto Ewok. We do this every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are not familiar with the show, welcome in, everybody. Smash the like on your way in. We have a huge show for you tonight. A lot of stuff to get to. We've got Jerome Powell with some interesting statements last week regarding what we're going to see at the upcoming FOMC meeting. We've got Grayscale winning their lawsuit yet again over Gary G and the SEC. So we have a lot of stuff to talk about there. Obviously, if you've seen the thumbnail, we're going to talk about what we think is going to happen in the markets here in September, because a lot of people are expecting blood in the street. Richard Hart stuff, Hex, obviously, PulseChain, a whole bunch of stuff to get into. What's going on with PulseX? A lot of stuff to talk about. So welcome in, everybody, tonight. Humberto, Andrew, Clifton. Who do we have there earlier? I don't know. He's gone now. So we've got people in the chat. Welcome on in. Hit us up with your thoughts and questions. We definitely want to get you guys involved here tonight as well. Before we really dive into the show, though, Ewok, how are you? Oh, I do want to say tonight's show brought to you by PulseTube. That's right, PulseTube, which hosts all of many of the, not us actually, but that's okay, Hex, PulseChain channels. Shout out to PulseTube. I don't know. What's that guy's name? I forget his name that runs it.
I don't know. I don't know the dev's name or whoever designed it. I've asked a couple times to be listed, and I keep getting I'll get you on the next update, and hasn't happened yet, but okay. We're trying. We're trying hard, right?
Yeah, we're trying hard. I'm not that worried about it, but we just wanted to throw it out there that we are brought to you by PulseTube here tonight. Great service, and we definitely endorse everything that they do over there. Ewok, how are you doing tonight, and how are you feeling?
I'm good. It's another Wednesday. Lots of cool stuff happening in the atmospheres, and just getting through. It's getting interesting.
It's getting interesting. We have a lot of crazy stories to get into tonight. Again, most importantly, the fact that the SEC falls flat on their face, corrupt and incompetent. They lose another one. And hey, who's next on the docket in November? It very well may be Richard Hart. So we will get into that. First off, let's just kind of look into the prices and see where we're at. So we did have BTC and ETH and most of the market kind of rally back here over the course of the last week, up over 27K off the news of this Grayscale thing. So Bitcoin right now is sitting at 27.3K. Looks like we have ETH a little bit over 1,700. Looking at the PulseChain ecosystem, it did kind of move with the move of the greater market. But we're still down, make no mistake. We've got Pulse still at about 60% off of SAC rate. PulseX continues to really, and we're going to talk about this tonight, kind of lose that ratio in relation to Pulse, almost down to a 4-to-1 now at 89, 90% off of the SAC rate. We have Hex on PulseChain at just about 0.9 of a cent, and Hex on ETH at about 0.4 of a cent. So that actually opening back up a little bit as the price is pumped as well, that ratio there. So first off, just about this move by the overall market, Ewok. And again, I mean, it's one of the sell the news events. We've already seen our ecosystem start to come back down. We're probably going to see a bit of a dip here again in the greater market off of this news now after the big buy up for everybody. But kind of a sell the news event, but a good... It depends on how you look at it as far as what your values are in crypto. Is it good news? Is it bad news? I'm not a fan of there being ETFs or anything when it comes to Bitcoin. But if you assume that it is going to be a necessary evil, which I think we both do. I mean, that's something that these people are going to do. It's going to happen. People were bullish on the news. So what do you make of it about the where we'll maybe see price go in the short term and midterm here off that news?
Yeah, it was bullish. It was bullish for the whole markets in general, as you could see. I still think we'll have another pullback. False pumps always kind of, it happens that way. We could pull back to the same level even, maybe even get another bottom. I think we have a double bottom going on PulseChain. It tapped that same level twice now. A third one, they say the more times that it touches a level and bounces, it becomes more and more resistant point. That would be good. I think a triple bottom there, and then, kind of take off. If we don't get quite there, that's fine too. But, I do see a pullback coming, before the major run up. I don't know how long this is going to draw out. We've talked about the full moon tonight. And sometimes that they say that has effects on the markets. I haven't really seen it today, although there is a pullback, happening right now with both Bitcoin and Ethereum. Pretty substantial, actually. It kind of lost a lot of that ground that it ran up there the other day. So I guess that was yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
So you know, it, again, it's that time of the cycle where it's boring. It's very boring. It just bounces around, gets people thinking this is it, until they're tired of seeing that bounce, and then they miss it because that really was it. By the time
Yeah.
they get frustrated of seeing these, run ups, they people are like, well, I'm not going to take this one. I'll play it when it bounces, and then it doesn't. Until it fools you. And that's how it usually goes. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what we're seeing right now. I mean, really, all of this action this week is nothing to really worry about. I mean, as long as you're a long-term holder, it's nothing to really pay that much attention to unless you're a day trader or something of the sort. But yeah, it is, I guess, for me, the most positive thing about this SEC news, I guess maybe we should just get to that part of it now, the actual lawsuit, because that is what kind of helped this price right now, is just the fact that the SEC took another big L on the chin. That's really the big thing, regardless of whether you care about Bitcoin ETFs or spot ETFs or anything like that, as opposed to just holding the actual asset. The SEC is on a losing streak, and everybody has been out here. All these people have been out here talking about, like, well, they don't lose. When it comes to the XRP case, when it comes to this one, and people, maybe Bitcoin maxis and the like, speculating about what will happen with Richard Hart is like the SEC doesn't lose, so don't bet on it or anything like that. Well, they have a losing streak going right now, and I think what's happening is they're just overplaying their hand. Everybody can see. I mean, the cat's kind of out of the bag here. I mean, like Gensler, we've talked about it, like the whole scene when he was in front of Congress that day, being challenged by the bow tie guy that I can never remember his name, directly being asked over and over and over again, do you refer to Ethereum as a security? And he's just finger shaking and he can't say anything. I mean, everybody knows what's going on with this guy and this organization. It's a corrupt organization. They have no idea what they're doing. That's not even saying it, right? I think they do know what they're doing, and they're purposely, sure, as we've talked about before, obfuscating their opinion about something, so they can play it however they want, whenever they want. And funnily enough, that's exactly what the judge said in this Grayscale case. They said that you guys, they literally called it arbitrary. They said that you go about this, you don't actually have any set plan, any set definitions or anything like that. If the judges are seeing this now, we'll get into how this might affect the Richard Hart case and the spillover and how one judge may look at another judge's ruling or whatever. But they are now seeing what we have been seeing all along. And the main gripe from all of these crypto entities, whether it's Brian Armstrong and Coinbase or whoever, is we just want clarity. We're not asking you to say this or that. Say something.
Yeah.
And the SEC never does. So what do you make of this lawsuit win for the Grayscale ETF?
Well, as much as you call it corruption, I mean, let's call it what it really is. And I think it's more extortion at this point.
Yeah.
They're trying to get settlements. They're probably lining their pockets of them and whoever else is, involved with it. And they're really just trying to extort people. We mentioned it last week on the show that they have the program where if you refer something and it wins over a certain amount, they get a percentage. So it's almost like a referral program to the SEC. It's sad at this point. So yeah, I'm really hoping there's clarity, or even maybe not clarity, but the judges get tired of wasting their time on a lot of these, fishing expeditions when they really just don't have anything. They're trying to extort money from these people. What they're doing, and hopefully they see that. If this continues, they're going to chase the industry out, when they could embrace it, work with it, whatever they may want to do. It's just, it's sad. I know it's a competition to the banks, and if the banking players are involved, they don't like it, but eventually they're going to have to embrace it and play the same game as everyone else. So,
Right.
I hope it plays out the way we want. I hope we continue on this streak of the judges being fair and hearing it, and ruling it properly. Because, like we said, we see the tweets that Richard's putting out, some of the precedent that's happened in the past with these cases, and how closely they tie together with what Hex really is. So, you know, we'll see how the phone call goes on the 28th of November, I believe it is. So, hopefully that starts the ball rolling here in the right direction.
Yeah, and we're going to get into exactly how that's going to affect that initial phone conference. It is, in fact, scheduled for November the 28th in a moment, and just how this rolling and the other subsequent rolling with XRP could affect the Richard Hart case in just a moment. I want to get this out of the way real quick because it's not something hugely important that we probably want to get into too much, but I think it deserves acknowledgement because it does have to do with macro right now. So this is kind of last week's news, about a week old now, but Jerome Powell spoke at Jackson Hole last week, actually on the 25th. Says that there's a long way to go and multiple more rate hikes could be coming, presumably of about 0.25%, 0.25. The next meetings are about 3 weeks off. So September the 20th is the next FOMC meeting, and then November the 1st are, I don't know if I can't remember if it's the final two of the year, but those are the next two. Probability of a rate hike had been only 20% for this September the 20th meeting. You and I talked about this the other day, Ewok. I think it shot up maybe to about 50-50 or something after his speech at Jackson Hole. What do you think the Fed does the rest of the year? And maybe that's not as important as like the mid to long term view here, because again, we've talked about this before. I tend to think that Powell is kind of bluffing. He always kind of does this dad speech, don't stay out too late. You got to make sure we do this in the morning and everything. And it still gets pressured by other folks as well. And then maybe doesn't actually pull the trigger on, the rate hike. So I'm not sure how much I really believe him or what his tone was. But what do you think? I know kind of what we talked about the other day is just wanting all this to be over and moving on. But his tone certainly didn't sound like they're done hiking rates. So what do you think?
No, it didn't sound like they're done, but you bring up a good point. There's been a lot of bluffing and a lot of not doing what they say they're going to do as quickly. I think we all just want them to do it and get it over with, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that would be the ideal situation. Raise it to what you want, get it done, let it kick in, hopefully move on from it so we can get back to even the rates that they're looking for so that they can start easing it back again. And, I think people are just tired of the whole song and dance from them, with the not knowing, what are they going to do? People, there are people that are concerned that they could be losing jobs. There are effects being felt by a lot of people, but it's just not to where they want it to be. And, like I said, I would rather just see them do it, get it over with. As far as the odds, I could probably see one more. There's 2 more meetings, I think, is what we said, left in the year. I could see one of them being at least a 25-point rate hike, and I don't think both of them will be, but I think one will for sure.
So there actually is a third and final one on December the 13th. So that will be the last one of 2023. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, people are losing interest. I really think it's one of those, it was kind of exciting to follow, not exciting, but, there was a lot of curiosity behind it. And now people are just like, I don't even care. It doesn't really, it hasn't affected the markets too badly, other than just kind of staying stagnant as far as I can see.
That's really it. That's what I was going to say is you're starting to see a lot of remarks from people on Twitter, X, whatever, from all over the cryptoverse of, this becoming the longest bear market ever now at 400 and I forget how many days. Again, it's all how you define that, the time horizons are how you define what a bear market or a bull market is or whatever. But that may be it. Maybe that's just what it is the actual, we've talked before about time capitulation and how much that can affect people differently than just, this price capitulation, obviously. Like, oh my God, my bags are down 90%. What do I do? But then there's also just like, can we get this shit? Like, what are we doing here? And then, right now, what are we seeing? And I'm not criticizing anybody that plays in either one of these pools. We talked about this at length last week, but you're seeing the pumpage of things in the PulseChain ecosystem like PDI or some of the other meme tokens that I'm admittedly not even that educated on, and that's not even different from, the larger crypto space. You look at something like Pepe months ago compared to the rest of the market. It's very easy for a wandering eye who's just sick of waiting on their blue chip assets to wait. Now we're fine with that, but for might be somebody's first go around or something like that, you get that shiny new toy syndrome and you make it what could be a colossal mistake,
Yeah, the shiny object syndrome during a bear market is pretty it's pretty hard for a lot of people. Like you said, if you haven't been around before and this is your first one, you see these things kind of pumping and you're like, oh, maybe I should get some. And then you get some and then it drops. And, it's just that cycle. If you're not in there from the beginning on some of these things, it's usually not going to fare well for you. There are some things that are doing cool. Some of the community likes to talk about some of the other things and, so be it. I hate bringing it up because of the timing. You know what I mean? It's rare for us to find one of those like little gems at the very beginning without knowing a whole lot about it, because we don't like to talk too much about, new things until they're somewhat proven. Right. So, it's hard to push some of those things. And for people in the first cycle, it's difficult and they do get bored and they don't understand, back to the theory of stake your hex, make your DCAing every single day if that's what you're doing. And it's not costing you anything. So, that's why I try to stay with the foundation of the tokens and, sometimes throw a little bit here and there, but I don't like to talk about it. If you find something and it catches your fancy, I wouldn't make a huge move. Definitely don't sell something for that. Throw a couple bucks into it if you want. But it could end up biting you in the ass down the road when you sell something that ends up doing 1,000x and that token that you got into, basically gets rug pulled or loses interest. Because when the green candles start on the major ecosystem, all these other little tokens are probably going to get left behind or not supported as well, because the action goes to where the excitement really goes.
It will be interesting to see, specifically. I mean, we will see this in the regular crypto market, but also, within the PulseChain ecosystem, what will happen with some of those tokens when eventually the core tokens like PulseChain, PulseX, and the hexes really get their shit together and start pumping. So that'll definitely be interesting to see. But time is something that's hurting people right now, but you just got to hang out. And that does bring me to this question, because, okay, we're seeing, at first it was just like, I was going to say the term moon boys. I don't mean like, Hex is going to hit $20 this cycle. I mean, moon boys, like literal lunar stuff, like you were mentioning a moment ago, Ewok. So we're hearing the moon boys. We're hearing the whatever. Look, I don't understand it all. It's not something that I am invested in, but the Jewish holiday stuff and everything and how it's going to line up. Everybody, and everywhere from that to like altcoin daily now tweeting stuff about like, hey, September is going to be bad, because it always has been. I always think in a contrarian mindset with anything. It goes back to the I think sports betting in me back in the day too. But if everybody is leaning on September being just this blood month, it's making me feel like is it really going to be that likely if every single person is expecting it? So I want to get your take on this. I mean, we did just see that pump up, which was definitely like a news thing, what just happened, and I'm willing to admit that. I'm not saying that we're going to see this sustained pump necessarily. But I'm just less willing to believe that September is going to be terrible because, well, everybody seems to believe that. So what do you think? And that leads us to, I didn't even mention the pool, but I just put a pool question in the chat tonight. Will we see new PulseChain lows in September? So far, it's almost even. Wow, actually, the majority are saying yes. To my point, 55% are saying yes, 45% no. So what do you think, Ewok? Not just about PulseChain, we'll talk about that, but I mean, what do you think about the probability of having a bad September when I think it's been if the stat I saw is correct, like 6 or 7 years in a row, it's been a red month for BTC in September. So what do you think?
I honestly think sellers are starting to get exhausted. Um, it- it's the sentiment that I'm kind of starting to see. I don't think September is going to be a blood month. I think it's going to be another boring month. A lot of times we say, March and April are usually kind of bearish as well. And that usually goes back to tax time. People are selling some profits to pay their bills or do whatever. And traditionally, September has been a rough kind of month. Not always the greatest, but I'm starting to see exhaustion. I don't know if we're there quite yet, but it is kind of bullish, from what I'm gathering. But I don't know if I voted on it too. I don't think we see another low. I think we could, like I said, double tap, triple tap that low that we already have. I don't know that it goes much further. But that's just my opinion. Total speculation at this point.
Well, there we go. We got Chaos Theory in the chat. Johnny Chaos chiming in to say that September is going to be a green candle. I mean, I tend to agree with them. I mean, there's just so many people expecting the opposite of that we usually don't get what we want when everybody is thinking the same thing. So that's as far as my logic goes. I'm not going to act like I have any kind of answer here or anything. But hey, the thing is, though, I mean, regardless of that, yeah, it's
that
a
would
fun.
Be nice. Yeah.
You're right. And it's a fun little side bet to make or whatever, but you want to be prepared for both scenarios. If we would get a modest dip, a major dip, a pump, whatever it may be, just make sure that you're going to feel comfortable no matter what happens. I mean, look, a lot of us don't have any money left. I mean? Like a lot of us are in the market. There's been dip at the dip of the dip of the dip. And that's just where we're at right now. And it's just kind of like waiting on your monthly income or whatever at this point to DCA if you can. So keep your head on a swivel. I mean, that's really what it is. Yeah, I tend to think that I would like to see PulseChain kind of get up, and it was kind of frozen to that 50% below the SAC rate there for a couple of weeks. It'd be nice to see us kind of return up to there. I'd like to see some more relative strength with PulseX. I don't know if we're going to get that in the near future as it's just gotten weaker. But yeah, I tend to think that the crowd will be wrong in September. So any other thoughts on that?
No, I hope so. I hope you're right. It is fun to play the contrarian, but you have to be realistic too. Like you said, just have some money set aside. If you are DCAing this time, have some money ready to go and make a move that you're comfortable with. It goes down, great. If it starts to take off, you might want to jump in. Just don't do it all at once because it could always pull back. I don't know if you guys remember the original run up that Hex had. It dipped 50, 60, 70, 80% about 8 or 9 times on the way up.
Yeah.
So there are always pullbacks. They're always, they tend to fake people out. But just be ready for it and make moves accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far tonight, hit the like. We very much appreciate it. We're talking about, we're going to get back into the SEC stuff in a moment. Just a reminder that tonight's show is brought to you by PulseTube. The nice folks over there that host all of the different Hex channels and PulseChain channels, a great service to all of us for sure. So thank you for that. All right, so let's get back into the SEC thing and how it's going to relate to Richard Heart. So the SEC taking a couple on the chin, XRP, now the Grayscale thing. These judges seem to be seeing that a lot of the stuff that the SEC is deciding on is just kind of arbitrary. Where's their head at with anything? They don't really... I'm not as familiar, obviously, with the complaints that were filed from the SEC to these other two scenarios as I am the Richard Heart one. But if it was written, as infantile and kind of related to information that a whistleblower gave them that, is falsifying statements, no wonder they lost. But so let's get to the facts. That is that the first hearing is on November the 28th with the SEC and Richard Hart. Now, this is going to be a phone meeting, 10 a.m. that day, phone conference for counsel. Everybody that's talking about like, oh yeah, I hope Richard Hart goes in there and does this, and I hope, well, there's nowhere to actually go in. It's on the phone, and I don't really think Richard Hart's going to be there. I think it would be his counsel that would be there, as well as the counsel for the SEC, who I believe we've already heard from in this statement. It's likely a chance for the judge, which there's actually two judges here. So there's and one of them is an old person. We know that, but she has basically ruled not so favorably in terms of crypto in the past. The other one is Magistrate Judge Peggy Kuo. She's actually going to be hearing this phone conference, so we'll see what she has to say. She'll be the main one hearing the phone conference. So, what this is going to be, I think, because of all of the claims coming from the SEC in this case that are just kind of thrown up against the wall, is a chance for the judge to have an understanding like, all right, what are we dealing with here? Like, tell me what all this garbage is about. What are you guys alleging? Do you even, get a feel of what the evidence could bring out, and then get a feel for what Richard Hart's counsel will really be looking to do in response to this, to just kind of take the temperature of the whole thing. I don't know how much we're going to actually get out of this. I'm sure there will be fun stuff and news to talk about. I don't think this is like going to, we're going to get an answer definitively to anything long term here. But I think we're probably going to get some juicy information and kind of see at least the paths that both of these sides are taking. And I imagine that the SEC's part of it is embarrassing themselves yet again. But this is what I want to see. Do you think we do get some direction on where Richard Hart's side could be taking this? We already know where the SEC's at. Just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks, basically. Right. Do you think maybe we see the SEC bending a little bit? Could we hear anything about like settlement versus how long this could be, fought out? What do you think we're going to get from this November the 28th phone conference?
I think we'll get a really good temperature of what's going to happen. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Richard does show up. Maybe he doesn't say anything. Maybe he's not participating, but I could totally see him being present for the call or on the call. My thought at first was this is going to be an open call. They gave the number, they gave the passcode. I just wonder if it will be public enough to where the speakers may have a extra access code or something like that. A lot of times these conference call lines are like that, where they give the speakers a different code and the public can listen in. So I do know they're offering transcripts, and I would be willing to bet that the transcript will be one of the most requested ones so far that they have seen. Should be kind of interesting. But yeah, I think we'll get a good reading on the the temperature of what the judges are thinking, what are Hex's defense, Richard's defense strategy may look like, or maybe they don't reveal anything. Maybe they get the temperature and their reading and see where they want to take it from there. It could really play out either way, whether they come in there hot and heavy and say, this is what we're going for, or they sit back and let the plaintiffs kind of see where they're headed. With the original thing being so poorly written, I would almost hope that they kind of take a step back and see which way and which direction they're headed, and then play it from there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be a good one to kind of look into to see which direction they go with it, I think.
Most importantly, I really want to see what Richard's side is going to do, because again, we know the SEC's story. Like, we know that it's like, hey, we think this, we think that. We don't really know anything about it. This is just what somebody told us. And we don't have any, even though the burden is on us to prove it, we don't really have any way of doing that or anything. But this is what we're going to do. But yeah, I'm really interested to see, like, we'll probably kind of find out, like, how serious will Richard's side be about fighting this. Reading through his tweets, or, regardless of whether he wrote them or if it's AI, and I'm not trying to Crypto 7 you here or anything, Richard, but we just want to get an idea of where it is he's going. And that's what I think is going to be interesting. Like, how hard is he actually going after this thing? So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. That's November the 28th, 10 a.m. So yeah, and yeah, to your thing about the transcript, yeah, I even said to you too, somehow, whether you're allowed to or not, I'm sure some hexagon will obtain a recording of this thing. I'm not sure somehow we'll actually get that information quickly after it. But that's what I want to see. I think we will definitively know after it, at the very least, what direction Richard is taking this. And I think that is going to be very interesting to see. Yeah, and I just want to see where we're headed. And then, of course, we'll get another date after that. These things traditionally, I heard some people speculating like, oh, wow, this is moving along really quickly. I mean, from the time the lawsuit was filed, July 31st is the actual filing, about 3 months to a court date. I mean, it is New York, but I mean, like that's relatively typical, I think, in most markets. So, we may not have anything until February, March after that. So I know nobody wants to have this long and drawn out, but this is the courts. It's there's no other style. They don't know any other way to play. So
maybe Trevon will record it and put it on his private YouTube or something like that.
That would be perfect. Exactly. Yeah. Which we're going to get to him in a moment too. Yeah. We need Trevon to record it. Yeah, I think that would be perfect, actually. So are there any thoughts in the chat? I want to see like what anybody is thinking about anything about this, or see what direction he might go. I want to see if there's any interesting comments.
Well,
Johnny said, well, go
Clifton
ahead.
wants to settle. Sorry. Clifton says, look, settling the matter could be in the cards. I think so too, but at the same time, I think we all know Richard's personality. And I really think he wants to take it to him. I think he wants clarity. I think he wants a ruling in his favor. And he's in it for the glory. Don't forget. I don't think settling would give him that kind of feel good story. I just don't see that. So the more I think about it, I don't know. I don't think settling is anything that he's thinking about it, obviously, but I hope we don't. I would like to see a settlement and a ruling.
Yeah, I want this resolved. I just want to resolve.
I want resolution. Yes, I want resolution. I want an answer. Right. I want, and that way we can move on from this, and the haters can then go to hell, hopefully.
Well, I think it was maybe somebody there was a great stream. Shout out to Cabana Crypto. Walrus, I think, was on there, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting who else was, but it was sometime last week, and they were talking about this whole thing. And I think it was
Big K.
Internet. Yes, exactly, Internet Money. Right? Or no.
KG. Well, KG is Internet Money, and I think B. Krakowski was on there too.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. But now I forget where I was going with that. But
either way, sorry.
Well, the whole settlement thing, like, we want a resolution sooner rather than later. And, somebody pointed out on there is like, hey, this is just kind of the cost of doing business. And sometimes that is true. One of the things that happens to you when you make the kind of money that Richard Hart has over your life is you're going to have to pay off the haters. It's just kind of a part of doing business. And is it unfair? Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, if he can keep, like, okay, for example, this is something that I think they brought up on that stream too. This bullshit, and I keep forgetting that this is even in there. One of the things that the SEC is asking for is you must step away from crypto, not talk about it or be involved in it ever again. What is that? Okay, like, what? That's one of those things where it's like, what are you guys doing? What's the intent here? You want money. Right. Like, we know you want money. You even put an exact number out there that you're looking for. And now you're saying that the guy you can't talk about it, you can't work in it, you can't do anything about it. What are you talking about?
Right.
What do you make about that? Because that seems like the salt in the wound one. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, again, I hate to bring up his name again, but with Trevon, they kind of, I thought they had done that the first time that Trevon went in front of them with the BitConnect thing and said,
Mm,
you're going to settle here and you're not going to talk about this stuff anymore.
yeah.
Well, he proceeded to, and I don't know if he kind of just said that, if they really said that, and he didn't care. And now he in his last little stint, which we might as well talk about.
We will, yeah.
He
If you want
claimed
to
that
go in,
the same thing. So I
yeah.
I don't think they can do that. I don't think they say, well, you're not allowed to talk about this anymore. You know, you may be able to say, well, you can't talk about your prices or anything like that.
Which he's hesitant already of. I
He
mean,
is,
he's already
yeah,
hesitant of that.
he's been very, very careful
Mhm.
in the in the past to give any kind of forward looking price predictions. Um, so does that prohibit him from streaming and being part of his community? I don't think so. I don't think you can. I don't think you can do that. You're not doing anything wrong. It's freedom of speech. It goes back to those type of things where you can't stop somebody from making a video and talking about the things that you enjoy. You really can't.
And
So
I think that was probably Trevon's MO by continuing to talk about this stuff, if you look at like Richard's recent tweets and stuff like that, what are what is there to attack about that stuff? I wanted to say something that Johnny brought up in the chat a bit ago here, and we talked about this earlier, but about the judges getting fed up with the SEC making stuff up with these, not just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, but also just with this thing we just saw with Grayscale. Like clearly, rules for thee and not for me and all these things. I wonder how much, even if it's different judges, obviously different jurisdictions, these judges are still human beings, even though we like to think that people in politics or lawyers are not human.
yeah,
Uh, but they are, and they
right.
may be seeing what is happening. I'm sure they're seeing what's happening with this other stuff. And I would think, even if it's not supposed to, that it could maybe influence their thoughts a little bit. Or at the very least, when you see that the hasty way the SEC puts this complaint together and with some of these erroneous, literally false statements within the claim, it's like, here you are, the plaintiff, bringing this to me, wasting my time potentially, and this is like drivel, like what you've given me here. It's like the dog ate my homework kind of a thing.
Yep.
So do you think that carries over? I mean, like, do you think these judges are seeing that? I mean, look, the SEC taking these huge losses in the crypto world, it's gaining steam. Everybody's talking about it. All of crypto Twitter, from altcoin daily down to hexologist, are
Yeah.
shitting on the SEC pretty much equally right now. So, yeah, what do you think? I mean, like, do you think they'll have influence on these judges?
So it it scares me a little bit. Excuse me. Hang on. It scares me because we all know how corrupt some officials can be, how they can be bought, and at that point, I just worry that someone doesn't step in and say, "Listen, you got to make an example out of somebody because we're looking like shit here." And I
Yeah.
hope that doesn't play on our case. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope that's not the one. So that is one of the things that does concern me. To they start taking all these L's and they start paying people off and say, "Listen, we need a win, and this could be a big one." That's my only fear. Other than that, I think he'll be very prepared. I think his lawyers will be very prepared. And Johnny brings up a good point here too. That the one time that Richard did settle was over $500 because he didn't want to travel to Washington State. Um, and they're still saying it's proof of him being a scammer. So, I do agree with this. I think that he did that once, and I've thought about that too. Another reason why I don't think he'll settle this time. I think he wants to win, on top of the
Mhm.
glory, on top of everything else. But again, my fear is that somebody doesn't step in with some big pockets and have somebody say, this one needs to kind of go in our favor, because we all know
Yeah.
things are crooked, things are corrupt. As much as we, like to think everyone's fair about it, and try to respect the judicial system for what it is, it may be the case where a jury would be a good thing, rather than putting it in the case or in the hands of just one person. So
I
just my
hear that.
thoughts.
I tend to agree with what Mr. Chink said here a few minutes ago. He said, "I believe RH will do what's in the best interest of his alter ego," meaning these entities that are also being sued and called his alter ego in the complaint. Even if it means settling, he knows a long drawn out case will drastically hurt the price. He'll do what's best for the price. IMO. I at the end of the day, I agree with that. And I do understand that, hey, Richard's a fighter and he's not going to, do this or that. And I understand that. I do get that. But I think that as big as his ego is, honestly, and this is a compliment, obviously, I think he cares more about people that believe in him and believe in the products that he's,
Yeah.
had a part in. So,
Yeah. I
I
support either way. Whatever
right.
happens, it's obviously his decision to make. So I think all we're doing is speculating at this point which way it'll play out. But again, it's ultimately him and the lawyers to decide on what's best for everything. So
What I want to ask is like, and I know you haven't either, Ewok, but like, there are zero vocal, visible victims of Hex, Pulse Chain. Like, we literally only know, and we're not going to put his name on blast or anything like that. The name of one of the maybe the sole person who made a complaint to the SEC. Solely out of not taking personal responsibility and making a dumb financial decision trading wise and then blaming others, in this
right.
case, Richard Hart. So, these complaints that are received by the SEC for their bounty program are simply people who, again, made these bad decisions, buy the top, sell the bottom. These are mistakes that you could make with Bitcoin. Hell, I mean, Microsoft or trading a stock or something like that. It comes down to personal accountability. You mentioned the other day talking about the SEC and this issue with impact theory, the NFT
Mhm.
thing. What did you want to say on that? Because that was important, and we can relate to that a little bit.
Well, I think they dismissed that one pretty quickly as well. I think it was another win. I don't know how far it went, but it, again, it was just another incident of them overreaching.
Yeah,
I heard it was brought up and dropped pretty quickly. I could be wrong on that one, but it kind of came and went overnight. I felt like, so I don't know how that one played out, because it's not really being talked about anymore. But again, for NFTs, it's there's so much overreach here. As much as I'm not a fan of NFTs, but the growth of what NFTs have become and will become in the future, you
hmm
know, it, again, I'm glad this one hopefully got thrown out. If what I read was correct, it was brought up and released as quick as it came into play. So that's really all I know about it. We heard about it one day, and then someone said, "Well, that's been dropped." So
yeah,
that's a good thing. Another
yeah.
another win.
Yeah, and they're just kind of stacking up at this point. So yeah, hopefully these judges and the people that matter do see what the SEC is doing. They continue to
Mhm.
overreach, and fight back here and fight for the little guy basically. So
Yep.
if you guys are here and enjoying the stream, smash the like. We appreciate it. We do this stream every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Creative Crypto. I'm Boi Crypto. That is Crypto Ewok. Keep the comments and questions coming. We appreciate you guys in the chat.
This
Yeah,
brings
go
up
ahead.
a good point Andrew just made.
Mhm.
All the SEC stuff is really coming from JP Morgan and the other big banks being pissed about others wanting to play in their sandbox. Could also be a good reason why this bear market has been so drawn out. I feel like a lot of those guys are still even entering very slowly. But some of these bigger players, I have a feeling, are entering the markets as well. And that's why it's been so delayed. We're having trouble washing out people because it's kind of just been stagnant. But I wouldn't be surprised if some of these big players are coming in now at these levels. So kind of keep an eye on that and watch what they do, not really what they say. So just
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. Look at the actions, not necessarily the words, for
yep,
sure. I think
yep.
that's hugely indicative. Yeah. Good call. Finishing off on anything to do with the SEC. So we got to talk about the Trevon thing a little bit more in detail for a moment here. So
Okay.
first came out. So I guess he was in Twitter jail or something. I don't know. I don't know I think he was off YouTube maybe for a little bit too. And, Trevon, first off, been in crypto a very long time. There's obviously the drama that happened with BitConnect, which you talked about a little bit earlier. Highly controversial guy, liked by some, not liked by others. I don't think you or I really come out strongly here nor there. But he was just taken in by local authorities. And I guess I'm not really doxing him. I think he kind of has already done that himself, but in South Carolina. And at first, so there was this whole thing going around that it was because of him, the joke you made earlier. So filming the highest of stakes and putting it up in his whatever private group or something. Hey, it looked to me like there was a screenshot of Trevon himself actually saying that, but then deleted it. So no idea of the validity of that. Really don't care about that at all. But then to Trevon's credit, he came on, talked about what really occurred. Basically that he got a subpoena to appear to give, I guess, like a deposition essentially on this issue in the SEC going after Richard Hart and basically grill him on questions they've already grilled him about in the past. He's been vocal about this in the past whenever it's happened, asking him about, PulseChain, Hex, whether he's been paid to talk about it. Maybe the sacrifice phase. I don't even remember what else. And I think Trevon's main beef was at the beginning of that whole thing. It says that he was invited to said event, which, yeah, terrible terminology. I'm not really sure who it helps out by the entity saying that they're inviting you to something when you're being subpoenaed. Regardless, probably should have read the whole thing and actually saw what was on the back anyway. So I guess when he didn't respond to it, he was taken in, was in jail for a couple of days, apparently. So, yeah, they're basically continuing to try to get dirt on Richard Hart that is not true. Trevon told him the same thing that he said a million other times. What do you make of it? And, it's complicated. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, what I think or what any individual thinks. But, like, I empathize a lot with Trevon. Like, he was actually getting almost emotional, I think, when he was talking about this on stream the other day when I was watching him. But at the same time, I feel like he does kind of put himself out there more than most, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that makes him a criminal. It doesn't in that sense, but he's just more visible is all I'm saying. That's all. But regardless, I mean, it's nice that he obviously went in, told everybody the truth, told him what he knows and everything. But I get it. He feels like, how can I ever talk about this stuff again? Because they've got, talk about choke point. I mean, they basically, he's the guy they're just going to keep bringing in. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on this whole situation?
So just knowing Trevon's history, again, he had been brought in before. He knows well enough, or should know well enough, to read that over and know that they probably wouldn't serve him with paperwork that was an invitation. That's my first thought. He should have, at least, if he wasn't sure, had somebody look over it or even read through it all, because I'm sure it said something later on in the paperwork that, he was due to appear. It wasn't an invitation. It wasn't an optional type thing. And yeah, that's why he got picked up. You're right. He is vocal. He puts himself out there. But again, he should have had the wherewithal to know, to read it or have somebody else read it. I'm sure he's got a lawyer or somebody that he could have taken it to and said, "Hey, what do I got to do?" He's not dumb. He may play stupid sometimes, but he's not dumb. And I do sometimes feel bad, but again, you kind of have to understand that a lot of people kind of bring things on themselves.
Mm.
Was he treated fairly by a lot of people, and people still call him a scammer from the BitConnect days? Yeah, he made a lot of money from a lot of people who lost a lot of money. He got a new house, he got a new car, he definitely profited in that deal. So he also took a lot of profits. So you know, it goes both ways. I do kind of feel bad for him, but again,
Mm.
I think he's smart enough and been around long enough to know that he needed to look into that. And you don't just take something when someone comes to your door and hands you a piece of paper. You're being served. You should probably read it, and show up. Now, it was good that he talked, he told the truth, whatever. We'll say it again. We're not being paid to talk about the things we like,
Being paid by
nor,
YouTube. That's
nor,
pretty much it. Yeah.
yeah, we get a check from YouTube every month. But you know, as with any of the people that are in this community, nobody's received money. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's been paid anything. So, Hexologist had to buy the man lunch. He wouldn't even splurge on a lunch with him when he met with Richard. So, you know, anyway, I digress. I'm getting off the subject, but yeah, I do feel I do feel for him. Again, some of the things he's brought on himself, and but where do you go from there, right? I mean, someone I've heard he's kind of gone dark and not talked. I don't know if he's made any videos since then. I forget who it was in the. Oh, Andrew said it. He said he's out. He's going dark, and I don't know if he's made any videos since the other day when he made that one or not. I haven't seen anything. I don't really follow a whole lot. I see some of the stuff. He has a presence on Twitter. He's on YouTube, and it comes up in the algorithm often enough. But yeah, I mean, again, he should have read it. He should have had somebody else read it.
Definitely.
And anytime you get served with a paper, if you're not sure exactly what it says, you should always have somebody look over it. And that is advice. If you don't understand it, find someone who does, because you don't want to, the last thing you want to do is have them come knocking on your door because you didn't show up somewhere and get arrested on a Friday. And guess what? You're not getting out till Monday. Usually, they don't, make it a habit of letting people out of jail for failure to show up at some sort of hearing that you were supposed to be at, until they're back in the office on Monday. You'll stay there all
Right.
weekend. So
Yeah, and to your point earlier, I mean, like I would think that he has an attorney of some sort. I mean, if he doesn't by now, he absolutely should, because they're clearly
yeah,
fucking with him.
yeah,
And that I do feel for him on that front, that they're
sure,
continuously going after him. So I mean, he has to have some kind of representation, and I'm sure he can afford it. So why not?
yeah.
Real quick on this point, I don't think there's any chance of this, but that Pulse play in the chat says, thoughts on if RH ghosts this meeting, no shows with no counsel. I think there's no chance of that. I mean, that would be not smart.
Who
I don't
said
think
that?
it was 2 comments ago, that Pulse play.
Oh,
I don't see that happening. Now again, I personally don't even really think Richard Hart will be in attendance on the teleconference or whatever it is. But I think his counsel will be there, and I think that they'll want to get a stern message across to the SEC and to the judge to show how serious they are. And I think they want to embarrass the SEC, frankly.
yeah.
And
I think that
yeah.
comment goes back to when you look at Richard's profile on Twitter. Richard doesn't read anything. Kind of that comment. I do think that he has probably gotten his paperwork or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I think that's I don't see that happening. Richard may not be there. Like I said, I think he dials in. I think he listens. He's
Maybe
the type of,
listens.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
or he's with his attorneys while they're on maybe speakerphone or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think he'll be a part of it. You just may not know he's there.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that as well. Let's talk about this PulseX thing real quick. Enough of the SEC. We'll get it. Well, that'll be an
Yeah,
ongoing thing. We'll talk about
sure.
Gary Gensler for a long time here in the coming months, I'm sure. But PulseX. So this was some drama this week. So the buy and burn, there was kind of a panic by some that it was paused. Dip Catcher made a couple of terrific threads on this and went through in the comments and was responding to people. I found those both really, really helpful to see what was going on. At first, it looked like his hypothesis was it looked like there is an incoming update to PulseX on the test net that was creating this issue and that update was coming soon. Then, though, I'm not going to pretend I totally understood the other post, but basically it looked like there was some sort of, I don't want to call it an exploit. I'll have to just put the Dip Catcher thread in the chat for everybody to check this out. The thing is, though, as good as his deep dives were and will continue to be, it's kind of moot now because the big man tweeted earlier today, Richard Hart tweeted about this issue, actually, which I think was really good, like we talked about earlier, to let everybody know what may have been going on. So here was the post about what the PulseX buy and burn from Richard. Why is PulseChain so much better than any other layer 2 scaling solution? Lots of reasons. For instance, what just happened with Starknet. Apparently, everyone that didn't upgrade to a new wallet on time lost all their coins. The PulseChain network is battle-hardened and truly decentralized and amazingly efficient. Transactions are about 1,500 times more affordable than Ethereum currently and 1,000 times more affordable than Bitcoin. Finally, at the end, he says, PulseX has a new buy and burn contract on testnet, appears to solve some nested LP things. So to Dip Catcher's first hypothesis, yes, there is an update on testnet. It's a new buy and burn contract coming. So I don't think that we've lost out on any kind of significant buy and burn for a couple of days or anything like that. It just looks like there's a new contract coming for it. What do you make of this, Ewok, now that we at least know what the answer is? And some people were upset about this because they were saying, well, this proves that it has admin keys. And what's the point of no admin keys? And I think what it is the buy and burn contract and what it is set to is different from admin keys for the whole blockchain. It's not necessarily the same thing. So what do you make of this whole ordeal and Richard's tweet today?
So to address that last thing you said, any kind of L1 has to have admin key access so that upgrades can be made, so that if there are problems, they can be fixed. So, when we talk about admin key free consensus locked contracts like that, you can't really do that with a layer 1. Otherwise, it's just you deploy it and there's never any upgrades that can be done. Now, the buy and burn is part of the PulseX. I guess they called it like a toolbox or something like that. That is how they can add liquidity incentive for the farms and things like that. And the buy and burn was part of that access. So what was happening was that there was somebody, there's some freaking smart people out there who wrote a smart contract and a bot to run it that was continuously spoofing the liquidity provider tokens so that it made it look like it was a buy and burn. But instead of sending it to the Pulse buy and burn contract, it was sending it to a random wallet. Now, they got away with about 1.7 billion tokens from what I saw. And just to be open with that, it's about 0.01% of the total supply. So it's not much. It's there's not much there. If they dumped them, they might have gotten 50 grand total. So they caught it after a couple of days of noticing it. Somebody, spotted it was happening, whatever. But the buy and burn was froze. So that means that any transaction that's happening is now being pulled. So once that new contract goes live, everything that's pulled there from the time that it's down will get buy and burn. So potentially when this goes live, we could see a nice green candle.
True. Yeah.
Might be a good buy-in opportunity before that buy and burn gets launched, because I don't know how many transactions are, I don't know what's sitting there waiting to happen. But yeah, if you're not following Dipcatcher, you really should. He's a
Definitely.
great follow. He's a coder himself. He's part of the Maximus crew. So yeah, he's super intelligent. He puts out some very nice tweets with the very informational stuff. So yeah, if you're not following him, you really should. He's a top-notch dude.
Absolutely, yeah. And you just described exactly what his follow-up tweet was about the other billion pulse and everything. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, yeah, because of the delay on the buy and burn for a couple of days, yeah, we could see something. And it also explains what I wanted to talk about now is the widening of this ratio. So, PulseX really has held up really well with Paul. Now, even though hey, don't get me wrong, the price is shit. I'm not, I'm not saying that compared to USD, but the ratio to Pulse really since launch after the ratio trading period, which was a whole other story, has really remained right around that 3-to-1 ish area, Pulse to PulseX, which is very good for PulseX.
Mhm.
But for the first time in a while now, we've seen that widen to about 4-to-1. Now, I wonder if that may narrow once we see the buy and burn correct itself here. But I guess my question for you, Ewok, is, it's no secret. I mean, we all know that more people sacrifice for PulseX, way more money was sacrificed for PulseX for nothing other than the simple fact that it was months after, six,
Right.
7 months after the
Right.
PulseChain sacrifice. So for 2 years here, we had so many people pumping PulseX. Here's why PulseX is going to be better than Pulse and the buy and burn and everything, which, hey, buy and burn's awesome. That's cool. And I think it'll be a great DEX and everything. But was this just a case of people pumping their own bags? And, in what ecosystem does the DEX outperform the L1? It's not a typical thing, especially for like the first cycle anyway.
Right.
But yeah, we are seeing what I think is the natural result of more people holding PulseX, more money being in PulseX at first, more sacrifice funds people were waiting to hopefully get back, even though they shouldn't have been with PulseX, that dumped it maybe right away. So,
Yeah.
what do you make of that? Will we see this ratio widen? If and when it does, do you think it's wiser to start DCAing? If you're maybe if you're buying both these assets, Pulse and PulseX, maybe start doing 60-40 PulseX to Pulse or something like that. If that ratio widens, what do you think about that? What do you think about the ratio, and how would you DCA in if you wanted to?
I think the thing you have to keep an eye on is the amount of liquidity tying the two together.
Mm-hmm.
I do think the buy and burn had something to do with it getting closer to 4-to-1 rather than 3-to-1. And I'm not sure. I haven't looked into how that would come into play, but I don't think the liquidity pair between the two has changed an awful lot. So it would make sense that because of that being kind of just held there and frozen, I think we have to kind of wait to see till that contract goes live to see if it does come back to that right around 3-to-1 ratio. If it doesn't, that means potentially that the liquidity between the two coins has changed. Or again, people are just losing faith and swapping out of PulseX into another coin, whether it be into Pulse or into Hex or Incentive or Pepe or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Who knows? What it could be. I haven't dug into the trades that much to really get a good idea, and I didn't realize that it had pooled that far apart until we were just talking about it, and you said the price. I saw it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, especially right now with the buy and burn contract not working. So I could totally see that having something to do with it. And like I said, once that goes live, we'll see if it kind of narrows that ratio a little bit, and we'll probably know at that point.
We know it's already, I just looked at it live. It's already actually come back down a bit. It's at about 3.56 right now, which, isn't really that far off from where it's been. It's been basically 1 to 3.
Yeah.
I think it was 4 to 1 for a period, or 1 to 4 for a period of time. But I don't know. I mean, luckily it doesn't look like there's anything to be concerned about with PulseX, but I do wonder, when we do get bullish and retail really comes in here, if those ratios continue to hold up, because there really just hasn't been some ridiculous, 1 to 8, 1 to 10 type scenario where it's like PulseX is what you want to be looking at buying exclusively here. It really hasn't been anywhere near that far off yet. So, yeah, if it's me and if I'm DCing into it and I need both of them, I'm probably just going to split it amongst them right now. And I understand, there's probably some hate out there from some people that would, more so just want to be all in Pulse right now. I wouldn't argue with you on that at all. I mean, it's do whatever you want to do. I mean, like if you want to be, split 33% among Hex, Pulse, PulseX, or, you differentiate the two hexes and do like 25, 25, 25, 25, whatever it is you want to do, that's fine. Different strokes for different folks, but the ratio has suffered a bit, but it's really not all that far off. So, yeah.
Pac-Man's giving a little hate here too. He's throwing up a lot of negatives tonight of what happened to PulseX staking. I'm assuming he's talking about the single-sided staking. Who knows? I know it wasn't very high on his priority list until a bunch of people bitched about it. We do have staking. It's Hex. It's probably your best form of staking that we have. There's also the PH side. No, I know there's no hating. I get you. I see that, but we do have staking, and we have the PH system where I believe you can stake in those pools too and get even a better reward than I think you'll probably get with PLSX. So if you haven't checked those out, I would look into it. They're pretty high APY on there. And again, we've got the best staking that there is, and that's Hex. So I'm not too concerned about PLSX. I really don't think there's going to be any kind of extra incentive to not unstake. And I don't know that the return will actually be that great once we do get it. So, just a thought.
I was thinking that too. I don't know how big the return will actually be. Yeah, it would be nice to have it, but I mean, I think it is good that, while the market is dead right now, and like sentiment is just going to be sentiment right now, especially with the SEC thing happening. Yeah. I don't think the introduction of single-sided staking right now, and I get it if you thought it was going to be there and it's not, and you're upset about that, whatever. But I think as far as narrative, I think that would be basically like a fart in the wind, honestly, right now. I mean, like if it was introduced, there'd be like a 48-hour, oh, cool, whatever. It's like, okay, November 28th, the SEC conference. So, in terms of narrative, that's all I'm saying. I know you may not care about that, and I do understand it. We are smarter than just, understanding narratives and prices and stuff. We know that, the more things happening on the blockchain, the more tech that's happening, the more exciting it's going to be in the bull run. So, I understand that, but I do think him spacing out updates like that as we do get gradually into more bullish times will be good. I mean, I do think that will be a good thing. It's just like time, it's just like wanting a product to come out in a bear market and not a bull market. Not much different than that. So,
can I touch on Expedition too? He's been commenting all night about his wallet, asking Metamask.
He's talking about internet money. I saw.
Well, he started with the Are you guys sticking with Metamask? And there's a couple options out there. Metamask works fine for me. I'm not sure why you're having issues with it, other than there are some people that are afraid of the privacy issue with MetaMask that has been going on for some time. Internet money has worked great for a lot of people as well. If you're having problems with it, I would contact those guys. They're very vocal. They're on Twitter. KG is his name. Hit them up on Twitter and let them know you're having issues. They're there. They're part of the community, and I'm sure they would like to know if you're having problems with it. There's Aurochs wallet. There's a few different things out there that are working good for a lot of people. And like I said, if you're having problems with it, I would contact those guys. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and there's plenty of tutorials for internet money. And I told him I have not myself dived into it yet, but the more and more users it gets, and I think KG is awesome, the creator of internet money. I mean, any stream I've seen with him, he's just an exemplary guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think Hexpedition's main gripe with MetaMask was just the stuff that you said, Ewok. I don't think it was any other real technical thing or anything like that. But
he's saying it doesn't connect to V2 and most RH. Well, I disagree with that. They made it specifically to connect with PulseChain and the RH ecosystem. So,
well, again, he's having issues.
If you're having issues, I would definitely reach out to him.
Yeah. Real quick, let's touch on a positive here. So Phiat finally launching the fork of Aave. I shouldn't say finally. I mean, I'm glad that it's here. But the fork of Aave is finally launched. So again, a great video from Crypto Coffee the other day. Hey, if you ever wanted to short Hex, Bob Lucas, Peter Brandt, whoever else, here is your opportunity to do it on Phiat, on PulseChain. Hey, no real way to look at this other than this is like another insanely bullish thing happening in the midst of this SEC news. People are still building on this chain right now, making things that they promised to make. It's here. It's launched. People are using it right now. I think it's fantastic. I obviously am not a fan of trading with leverage or anything like that, but hey, there's a lot of different things you can do on there. I just think it's great that it's live. I love people coming through on what they promised. The team is awesome, and it's just good to see these products stepping up and get something out there a mere little over 90 days, 100 days, 3 months or so since this thing launched. So kudos to them for sure.
Yeah. So with the Aave thing, it's not like your traditional BitMEX leverage shorting. What you're doing essentially is borrowing against your tokens in hopes to buy them back if it drops. It's not, like I said, it's not your typical short sell, but it is a leveraged buy type situation. So yeah, all the haters, go for it.
Please do.
Yeah.
Short Hex, short whatever you want to in the ecosystem. But yeah, just awesome that people are building stuff out here right now, and we're only going to see more to come. We've got liquid loans, obviously, we talked about on the way.
Right.
So it's going to be terrific. I mean, the more and more this stuff happens again in the face of the SEC, I think it's just the more bullish to show that, like, hey, like, we're not going anywhere. So I do love to see that.
Yep.
Let's finish off with this. If you guys are still here and enjoying the chat or enjoy the show, hit the like. We very much appreciate it. We do this every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's finish off on this. This is a more bigger crypto market story that's been going on, but I think it's interesting to talk about for a moment, and that is the BitBoy drama. Okay, so now when I say that, that could probably be the phrase BitBoy drama could probably, fit for a number of things over the last couple of years. But essentially, he has left his channel, or there has been a coup of sorts. And he claims that there was one anyway, and he is no longer there. So he's no longer on the channel, no longer with the company. There's been speculation, maybe even by him himself. I admit I haven't followed this incredibly closely, but he's talking that he may be leaving the country. Then there were this one frankly pissed me off, and I said this to you the other night, Ewok. But the minute that I started seeing this substance abuse stuff on Twitter, especially by people who were not like from his company, that just kind of reeked of speculation. I was just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
That's not to say that it would be preposterous that I don't know anything about Ben Armstrong. So whatever. I mean, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. It seems like it did not at this point, which makes it even worse. But the minute that stuff like that starts being speculated about, especially by people who are not in the know, that just really pisses me off, because it's like you don't even know what you're talking about. You're slandering somebody publicly. Like, you have no idea. It's just, to me, that's just really shitty. Now, we talked about Trevon being like an enigmatic figure earlier. BitBoy certainly is one as well. He's controversial. He's been involved in a lot of strange tokens that he's made himself. Cost people a lot of money. But he's also, he was on SBF very publicly, very early. He has backed up Richard Hart on a number of occasions. He also danced around Richard Hart and PulseChain at times to try to save face on his channel. But hey, those guys hung out a little bit and stuff like that. As far as not that he cares, but as far as where I come out on BitBoy, I do think he is probably a net positive for this industry anyway, for the things that he's done. I don't know what it is he's going to do now. There's a theory going on out there that this could be a very valid theory, that, because of some of the tokens and coins that he was involved in, he may be hearing about something coming down the pike that's not so good for him regarding that. And he's trying to make a move right now. I don't know what it is. I will just say that the thing that frustrated me was the just talk of drug use and stuff like that before the claims were even substantiated. Yeah. So what do you make of all this? He does seem to always be mired in some sort of controversy. I think he prides himself on being that WWE, promo cutter. And he's very good at it. He does some funny stuff, but what do you make of it? And where do you think he heads from here?
Well, when you have 1.5 million subscribers, you're going to have all kinds of people talking about you every day, all the time. So, I do agree with you. I don't like the fact that if there is or was at any point substance abuse, that's his private life. It's not his BitBoy persona or whatever. I'm not a fan of that either, bringing up whether it's factual, even if it's not factual. The guy's got a wife, he's got kids. Yeah. Leave it to crypto and stay out of the man's personal business. If it's affecting his online persona, then it is what it is. But pure speculation about things like that. Maybe people that knew him from before, maybe he did have issues. I really don't know. And I hate to speculate without knowing. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I could see that play though. I could totally see the play if he's getting word, like we know that the SEC is coming after a lot of people. And we don't know, what he knows or got inside scoop of what happened. So, I think it may be smart for him to step back a little bit and take a break or whatever. Maybe he got wind and someone was saying, hey, you might want to take a step back for a little bit and let the dust settle. So it's a theory. Again, we don't have proof of anything, but it would be wise of him to do so. Maybe he did just get fed up. Maybe they had a falling out and he's going to do his own thing or do something different. He is that personality, and I'm sure he could start another channel and get a bunch of followers pretty quickly. So I don't think either one will suffer without each other or whatever it may be around the blockchain. I think belong to HIT, I think was the name of their whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He could come up with something and bring a lot of followers, and they both would be fine. So
yeah.
It is news, and like I said, when you end up with 1.5 million subscribers and followers, you're going to have that drama follow you, and people will make up rumors if they don't know something just to break the first news about you. That's kind of the position that you're in when you're in the spotlight like that. So it's probably normal.
And if he does want to get back in crypto media, hey, in this day and age, very easy to do so. Go rogue and do it however you do want to. I do think there's a lot more validity to, that there could be some sort of regulatory thing happening that he maybe wants to get out in front of. And hey, if he does, then, kudos to him at least for trying to do that. But we'll see. It is interesting. I mean, we'll see. Like as we do move into a new cycle, it's going to be so interesting next year. On a bigger point is like, what will the new Johnny Chaos in the chat earlier was talking about? Like already seeing the O face thumbnails coming back a little bit right now. It'll be interesting to see who those faces are come a calendar year from now, like when things start to heat up again, what new players there will be. Very interested to see that, but I don't think Ben will be gone for long simply because I think he loves the attention.
Right.
And I think he truly does love the business and loves crypto and stuff. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, the drug thing didn't really sit very well with me either. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for him. So any other thoughts on that at all, Ewok?
No, that's
Okay.
probably enough said about it. Like I said, until we know for sure, I don't want to speculate.
Yeah, Pac-Man, we will not, Ewok and I will not coup each other's channels and overthrow each other. So nothing to worry about there.
No, don't worry about that.
Yeah. Well, hey, we really appreciate you guys being here in the chat tonight. We do this every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Look, we've got a lot of stuff to look forward to here. The sting of the initial SEC lawsuit, it's a month old now, guys. So we're a month past that. We've got development happening since then. We have things launching on this blockchain. We've got a date now, November the 28th. We got the SEC looking like they're on their heels more than ever. So let's knock these fuckers out. How about that? By the time we get to the 28th and thereafter. So taking another big L yesterday for the SEC. So, well, hey, we will see you guys again next Wednesday. That'll be we're going to be into September here. Football season right around the corner. I know we got a couple of big games we're excited about this weekend, Ewok, but we will be back next Wednesday, September the 6th. So thank you all for being here. For Ewok, this has been Boi Crypto, and this is the Creed of Crypto Podcast. See you guys.